All right, 4:30 already. Let's wait for 2 more minutes. Start the session, Leo. Is that fine?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, thank you. Hello, everyone. Hi. We are waiting for some more people to join. Let's start the session in 1 or 2 minutes. All right, let's start. Hello, everyone. Hi. Thanks for joining the Adobe Analytics Champion User Group. This is office hours for February. It is for APAC and EMEA. And please note that the session will be recorded. So if at all you are joining, then I've assumed that you have given the consent here. Thank you. So I hope everybody can see my screen. So what I will do is we'll first go for a small introduction and then we'll go to the questions directly. Leo, hi. Do you want to introduce yourselves?
Oh yeah, of course. So this is Leo Lau. I'm the Adobe Analytics champion for the third year for now. I've been using Adobe Analytics since 2011, so 14 years of experience in Adobe Analytics. So I wish I can share some answer and some helpful tips to all of you.
Thanks, Liam. So I am Pradeep Arunraj, alias Arun. So I work as an enterprise architect in Nextro Digital. I have 14 plus years of experience in Adobe Analytics, Adobe Target, and most of the Adobe Experience Cloud solutions. I'm two-time Adobe Analytics champion, Adobe Community Advisor, Adobe Ambassador for the certifications, and so on. Recently, we have completed our first user group meet in Chennai, which was fabulous. Aside, I live in Chennai. I have two children. One, my son name is Winter, and my daughter name is River. That's it from my end. So let's quickly go to the session and the questions. Okay, so we have our first question, Liam. How to analyze the visitor dropped in funnel touchpoint, where exactly they went, basically what are the pages they have visited, right? So this is related to a funnel of flow. So what is your take here?
Yeah. So actually, I put in those initial kind
Oh,
of
okay.
answer in here. I think the basic thing is we know we can create a funnel in the Adobe Analytics using this 4-hour visualization. So this is a very simple funnel with just 2 steps, step 1, step 2. But the question is not really about the funnel. It is about where the user go after the funnel. So actually, in these visualizations, they have a feature that for us to do some further analysis from the funnel. So if you mouse over to the fallout, the second step, and then right click on the bar. So like here,
Yeah.
you see that we got some breakdown option that can have some fall through and fall out at this touch point. So basically, we can see that from step 1, step 2, if we use the fall through, click on that, and then we will have the second table below. So
yeah, that's what you have
basically
already added. Okay.
Yes. So it is basically that Adobe Analytics help us to create a little bit complicated sessions to give us the idea on where the user go after these step 1 and step 2. And then you see from the result is, of course, most of them from step 1, step 2, then go to thank you, they purchase. But then after that, not all of them go to the thank you, not all of them finishing the purchase. Some of them go to the home, some of them go to the category 3, 4, 3, 2, and etc. And then you see how many of those are visitors going into those different pages since step 1 and step 2. And I think it will be also an interesting opportunity to have a look, to have some more understanding how Adobe set up some a little bit complicated segments. So if we click on the segment definition for this fall through page equal any of step 1 and step 2. So if we mouse over to there and then to the eye, and then we can edit the segment, and then we can have a look on the logic of this segment on what Adobe are doing over here for us. So we can have a look at. So basically, it is a sequential segment first that the user viewed any step 1 and step 2, and then it will do a, let me double check, and then it will do a further that, okay, after step 1 and step 2, there is a third page exists, and then it lists out those third page here to tell, okay, where the user go after this step 1 and step 2. So it can give us some understanding that, okay, when the user drop out. So this one is, then we can see the step 1, step 2, then we can see about 4% of people dropping out, and then they go to home category 4, 3, 2, and
I see. So what would be the case if at all I click on this? Because I have never used this fall through till now. So what will be the case if at all I click on this and click on the fallout? What is fall through and what is fallout?
Yeah, this one I really need to have a deeper look, because usually I just look at the fall through that, okay, where they go. And then it is also a curiosity that we can have to learn the Adobe Analytics, that basically we try the fallout, then we can look in the segment definition, because Adobe is doing the same thing, that it create a segment from these 2 touch points, and then with some further criteria. So in this one, we can have a look to see what is this segment trying to do. That definitely they have the page step 1 and step 2 in the segment definition as a sequential segment. And then let me also try to do it on my side. So this for and the good thing is it is quite simple. It has quite slow in here.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Let me have a look on this for what is the segment trying to tell the story. So first, I think there is a documentation on the Adobe Experience Lead that can tell what is this fall through and fall out. But usually we will also want to know, okay, then what is the segment definition is telling? That it say, first, we excluding any people who have these step 1 and step 2 in a sequential segment. And then it has the user who viewed step 1, and then not to the step 2. So basically, it is the before and after. So the fall through is user going through step 1, step 2, and then where the legs fall out is step 1, but not step 2. But then where the user go instead of step 2.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
so
good.
we can get to know, and then we can learn a little bit on how doing some more complicated segment in Adobe Analytics.
Understood. So whenever see what I was doing till now is whenever there is there's a ask where people didn't know, or whenever there is unsure of what is the touch point is, I also usually use the flow analysis to understand where people are navigating. So I just get this particular step 1, try to understand where people are navigating or what are the other steps that is there in the process. Once I get the high level understanding on where people are navigating within those flows, then I try to get some understanding from there, and then I try to break it down using a follow. But now I can see that even though if you use the follow directly, you can get all these details directly at the right click, either fall through or all fall out. We can get all these details in a quick segmentation itself, which means we can understand the visitor behavior, right? The entire visit or unique visitor behavior who was exhibiting this particular fall through, right? Which is really great.
Yeah.
I never used it. Thank you for the tip.
And then this one is just 2 steps, and then you can imagine if our poses got more than 2 steps, step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we can have this fall out and fall through in any step in between. So it gives us a bit more understanding on each of those intermediate steps where the user dropping out to which page. So I like this one a little bit more than the flow visualizations, because it gives us some context at the upfront. Then it go through step 1, 2, 3 first, instead of we just look at step 3, but then where before and after it is quite messy sometimes because there are so many possibilities.
Right, because if I click on the flow through, I need to click on each and every navigation and expand it, see the top 10, and if I want to see next to top 10, again you need to expand it. It will take some time, right? The visualization in terms of flow is not really easier than how we are doing it right now in the one click related to segmentation. Oh, great. Thank you, Leo. Yeah, I would try to explore this. I never used this because recent times I'm not using any reporting, but definitely I will try to use this and see what's happening with all these numbers, or what are the journeys which we can grab this with this visualization. Thank you. That's a great tip. Yeah, so we have a question which is also related to visitor journey again. How to analyze visitor journey? Suppose if the business wants to understand before visiting a page, what are the other page they have visited, and after visiting a page, what are the other page visited, right? Which means he's trying to give the entire flow, right? Here, business is not looking for the immediate next or previous path, basically trying to know what are the pages they have most visited. Flow will help us to show the path, but if you want to figure out, or if you want to figure like which is the most visited page and how many number of time, how do we get the data? The question seems a little bit complex for me, but because if we ask how many pages or how many number of time visited, we can get this in a page traffic itself. So do we need to have a visitor journey here? What's your take?
So if we just simply look at what are the most visited page, we can have a simple table by page and then with a matrix of page view or visit. But what I also try to put in here a little bit, that not sure whether answering the questions directly, but just try to interpret is, okay, we know that flow can be complicated, that down below, we have the product detail page for the product 1036, and then the flow diagram. Then we know we can add more and more layer before and after to understand how the visitor flowing into that page and also going out. But sometimes it may be a little bit more complicated, and then we may just want to have some simple understanding on where the lists and periods. So I have in Adobe Analytics, they have a panel called the list or previous item that we can use this panel
Okay.
and then give it a dimension item in the setup. And then it will give us a bit of a different view instead of a flow, but it can give us a view on the immediate list or the immediate before item in some of the occurrences table format or the horizontal bar formats. So I think it is what I guess from the most likely to what the answer to this, because for the flow, for the previous and after, the flow and this one, this previous and after visualization are the two commonly used tools to understand how the people come in and leave for a particular page.
Okay, might be, yeah. This is also, I guess, even he is fine with this particular flow, but he is also trying to understand rather than the immediate next path. Let's say for the entire visit, right after a particular journey, if at all I want to understand all the next pages or all the preceding pages, then your previous report on the fallout would be super helpful, right? The fallout report, the segmentation, because if at all we create a segmentation, it is going to tell us all the pages irrespective of the next flow. That's my understanding, because the fallout was clearly saying me how many people went to thank you page, what are the other pages there in this particular flow, right? So that will again give the high level understanding, not just the immediate path, but all the path within that particular visit or for the visitor. So we can combine both to get the answer is my take as well. And this particular next or previous item is a template, right? So we have a template where we can just go and create a workspace template, and all these visualization will be made available by default when we select the template and select that particular page name. Great. So we have one more question here. It is related to buttons and CTAs tracking. For an implementation perspective, what is considered best practice when tracking button clicks? Considering how quickly the page redirect happens, how do we make sure that information is captured correctly? What is your take, Leo? Have you
Do you
are
want to
you
start
tracking
first?
any? Yeah.
Yes,
So do I want to go first? Yeah, I can. Yes.
Yeah.
Anything which is navigating to the next page is always a tougher ask. It is not only related to, you say, when you say about button or CTA tracking, it can be a form submission, it can be anything, right? So if there is a submit button or if there is a CTA click, and if it is landing to a different page, then while we were doing an app measurement, I want to take this question in two different implementation methodologies, right? One is during app measurement, another one is during web SDK. So during app measurement, whenever we navigate to next page or whenever we navigate or whenever we drop off, like let's say form abandonment, right? During that time, we will close the browser and there is something called page unload event trigger. But I'm not pretty sure whether it was super helpful and whether it was solving the problem, because most of the time, whenever we triggered server call on the click of any button, there were losses, right? There were data losses. On few occasions, it was sounding perfectly fine. We increased the timing, right, for the redirection, everything. But for few browsers, those were working fine. And for the internet connection, based on your internet connection also, sometimes it works, sometimes it won't work. That is why if you see the by default heat map tracking from Adobe, it will never capture these values on the click of the button. Rather, it will take it, right? It will grab all these values, put it into the cookie in the next page. On the next page load, we grab it. So one of the case which we started during implementation is whenever there is a redirection, whenever there is a click happening, we grab this value, put it in the cookie immediately, because putting a value in the cookie is much more easier than you send a server call and wait for the server call for a response, right? It is going to take some time. So it is better to set all these values in the cookie. It can be a simple button click, or it can be a form submission. So you put it in a cookie, and the next page, on the page load, you grab it. Anyhow, for a download or for an exit link, it is not a problem at all, because you would open that particular link in a new tab. So which means there will not be unload of that particular page, rather the page will be there in the browser. So it is not going to affect. For all the other custom links, whenever it is navigating to the next page, I would recommend to grab the value or put it in a local storage or cookie. When I say cookie, I am just saying about some storage. If you have any other super mechanism other than these two, you are welcome. But still, the option is put it in a storage, grab it in the next page, and during your page view call itself, you can grab it. In this way, there are two advantages. One advantage is the server calls would fire properly, because you are going to capture it in the next page. There will be lesser tracking issues. The second advantage is, since because you are going to grab everything in the next page, what will happen? Your server call will go down, because if there are, like, say 100 items or 100 CTAs, whenever you are going to trigger it, it is a secondary server call for you, which is again directly bound with your cost. But if you do it and if you capture it in the next page, your server call will be limited. There will be optimization in the server calls. So usually we consider that methodology in that case, right? And we have used somewhere around even app measurement, we have used them unload one, but it was not working fine. But for web SDK, it was always a storage, right? We use some data element, capture it, and then pass it to the next page and ensure that we grab it in your page view call. If at all we want to send it as a separate call, that is also fine, but usually in the next page. But while we are capturing the next page, we should ensure that the previous page name is captured, so that you can attribute back. Because how do you attribute back the values that is captured in the next page with the previous page? You need to have some values. So your previous page name has to be captured properly in the next page, so that whenever you want to break down which particular button is clicked against any page name, you can just go and correlate it easily. So that is the best practice which I'm thinking, because that's how it worked really well for us. But I will also wait for you to give his inputs.
Yeah, so there are also another way to do that.
Okay.
We know this type of click and then navigate may have problem that we lost the tracking on this click, because when the page is leaving, some of the pending level call, which is basically the web beacon, the tracking, may be cancelled by the browser. And then now a lot of modern browser, they have a mechanic called the navigator send beacon, which is basically they use something more fundamental on the browser level to send this beacon, to send this beacon, rather than a normal HTTP post or GET method for a normal tracking call. To do this, it depends on whether you are using the Adobe Analytics extension, which is the app measurement library, or you are using the web SDK. They have different way to configure this. So if you are using the web SDK, in the web SDK extension, I only use the Adobe Launch, so I hardly use the direct call. But in the extension, you will see that in a send event action, there is an option called document unloading. So which means it knows that, okay, when this send event happens, the document is actually unloading. So it will use the navigator send beacon method to send the data, and then it will not be impacted by the unload, by the navigation of this page. And then if you are using the Adobe Analytics extension or the app measurement, they have a attribute on the S object called the S.use beacon, and then you can set it as true. By default, it will be false or no value, and then the app measurement will use a basic get post method to send the web beacon to the AA tracking server. But if you use this set it to this s.useBeacon, then the app measurement library, you use this navigator.sendBeacon to send the tracking to the Adobe Analytics server. I can put the link for the documentation in the chat so everyone can have a look on this one. But and on some other case, the cookie method will be also useful. That because when we use this SendBeacon or document unloading, it is really a call by itself, a hit. But sometimes we may want to do some tracking on the previous page when that page is leaving. So maybe sometime we want to track how far the user ever scroll down in the page. We may have some very long web page, and then sometimes the business user want to know, okay, how far the visitor go down to the page. We can capture with some JavaScript, of course, to record how far the user ever scroll. But then when the user is leaving the page, instead of using these use beacon or web document unload, because it will trigger another hit that I don't want to. So then for that case, I will use a kind of a cookie approach that, okay, when the page is leaving, we have some DOM event callback to put those maximum page row into a cookie, and then on the next page display, the page will tracking triggered, then we send out the previous page name and the previous page maximum scroll number to the Adobe Analytics server as a whole in one single hit. Then it can give us a bit more information on how far the user viewed in the previous page. But yeah, back to this question is using these document unloading or the use beacon indicator could be something quite easy or handy to send these informations when the user click on some button and then navigating out. Hi, you're on mute. Hello.
Hello, hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
sorry, I muted you. I muted you for a bit because there was a lot of noise coming from your side, just so you're aware. Sorry about that.
No problem. Thank you. Yes, thank you, Leo. So let's go to the next question. How to troubleshoot some order ID seen over multiple days, right? That's the question. I'm looking for advice on how to troubleshoot an issue that I'm seeing in our reporting. There are small number of duplicate order IDs that are used across multiple days and that are seeing different products and revenue amounts tied to them. We are only seeing the first date and the product back in our end system. So I am unsure how second would populate with the different revenue amount and different products. I guess not production, it's products. So Leo, do you want to go or else can I start with?
Yeah, because I'm not really sure that is these order IDs a order ID, is it a EWA or something else? So it may be a little bit difficult to guess, because for me personally, I never really do a online purchase tracking type of thing. My background is on some insurance company, so we don't have too much order ID. So maybe see if you have something to share first.
Yeah, again the question is when we say order ID, how are we generating it? The order ID is the first question which I would ask, because usually whenever any submission happening, order ID might come up with multiple options, right? The generation of order ID. Let's say if at all we are generating, in our case, we also have a form, we also have a submission. But most of the time, what is happening there within our submission is the numbers in Adobe Analytics is not matching our data source. So what we have done is we have created an order ID generation mechanism in Adobe Launch itself, where we will generate the order ID. We will put the order ID in one of the EVAR in Adobe Analytics. Also, we'll send this order ID as a database or as a key to the data warehouse as well, or CRM system as well. So we have seen there were some gaps in terms of order ID, right? The mechanism of how we are generating an order ID and mapping it to both the system, it's always asked if there are some duplicates, or if there is an option so that whenever I generate the order ID, if there is a duplicate, there are high chances that in my Adobe Analytics it can capture. And if that is the case, it should also capture in your CRM. But here you are saying that it is not captured in the CRM system, rather it is only in Adobe Analytics, which ideally means somebody has loaded the page or somebody has created it. Because usually for order ID we would have an event serialization. Let's say rather than event serialization, let's say if it is tied up with a visit or something else, right, some other event, then after some days, if the page has been reloaded, there might be a high possibility that Adobe would capture this, because the event serialization is based on visit or some other event, right? So during the case, Adobe might trigger one more event which will be captured in Adobe Analytics. But I am sure that in our CRM system, whenever you land to the transaction ID, you won't be capturing it, because you know that the order ID is unique at your end, right? So the case is see how the event serialization is done here. So I would suggest to go for a validation related to event serialization and see what is the event serialization logic, whether it's a visit or whether it's a unique visitor or whether it is an event, right? If that is the case, I would say that it should tie up with the order ID rather than the visit. So the answering this question might be a little bit tougher, because we need to understand where order ID is coming from, but still understanding the event serialization might definitely help you out.
Yeah, and I also come up with some thinking is, if this order ID is captured into an EVAR, you can also look at the corresponding EVAR instance to see how many times that particular value really sending into Adobe Analytics in a webbeacon, because the instance is really tells you how many times that particular values are sending in. So if you see a particular same value of the order ID have multiple instances, then it really definitely telling you that, okay, there are multiple tracking sending in the same order ID. And then in that case, you will really need to look back into your web application, or how it generates the ID, or how it passing the ID into Adobe.
Agree. Yeah. So how can I import price data so that it can be used as a metric in reporting? So we have a purchase order numbers in an EVAR and have been uploading classifications such as order type, date, item number, promo code, list price, and selling price. The list price and selling price are coming through as dimension instead of metrics. So we cannot use them to determine revenue for an order, tactic, channel, etc. Is there a way to import those differently so that they can be used as a metric? I have never set up a data source, but looks like that might be a good option. Thanks. Yes, if at all we need to import, right, in this particular case, the only option is data source. So you have multiple options. You can just directly upload. There is a bulk data ingestion, or else data ingestion, normal data ingestion. The only option is through data source. I don't think so any other option than that right now exists here.
Yeah, so data source may be one of the easier approach to get this numeric data into Adobe Analytics, because classification, all the classification, they are string. You cannot do any calculation, and then data source is one, and then it is free. Somehow you will not be charged for how many data you are uploading. But data source have a downside, is now Adobe making the data source that we are uploading all the data, they are summary data, basically, which means when you are uploading a data source, you may upload 5 dimensions with 2 metrics. when you do the report, you can only do the breakdown analysis type of thing with those columns you are uploading. So if you are not if you have some other dimension, you are not having that in the data source upload. And then when you try to do some breakdown in the freeform table over there, you will see all of them become 0 because data source is just some additional data uploaded into Adobe that they are not correlated to other data. So it is free of charge and then comes in handy. There are some other approach that we can upload the data through the API. You can upload or alter some of the data in the hit data right now using the let me remember the name, the bulk data insertion API. But for that one, it will charge. So basically, every single line of record you are changing, it will be considered as a hit to your report suite. So that comes in a cost, but it will more or less similar to you are collecting the data in there, and then but that also require a bit of understanding on you need to know how the raw data, the hit data structured in Adobe Analytics so you can change those data correctly. And then because there is no way back, if you change it and get it wrong, then you will have some incorrect data in your report suite that could be very, very difficult to troubleshoot.
Yes, which means data coming from data sources non-retrospective, unlike classification, right? Because in classification, we can go and change if there is a different upload. But if once we upload anything from the data source point of view, once it is uploaded, unfortunately, we cannot go and delete it. So I have done the huge mistake during my earlier days in terms of uploading it. And we had one hack related to metric alone. So rather than uploading some other data, I have uploaded a negative values, Leo. So what happened is negative values and positive values just canceled each other, and we got the good answer, right? So good that I just uploaded a matrix alone, right, in a different path. But let's say if at all I have uploaded a dimension, but unfortunately we cannot delete it. So that is something we might definitely need to think through whenever we are using a data source. But I was really surprised when you said that Adobe started supporting only summary data, not the transaction ID. So usually, if there is a transaction ID, we can correlate these values against each other. That's my understanding earlier.
Yeah,
but did Adobe
we need to
stop
upload.
this?
We need to have all of them in the data source upload file because they stopped supporting what they call the full processing type of data source, so that they only now support the summary. So which in that case that we are only able to do breakdown within all those information we are uploading.
Okay, so if at all we have a transaction ID, if I upload transaction ID with some other values, right? Let's say there are 5 dimensions, I can do a correlation between those 5 dimensions, but I cannot do it if at all, let's say I want to break it down by browser or something else, I cannot do it. That's what you are saying. The full processing is now being stopped, and if at all we need a full processing, we need to go through data insertion API then.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. That's a good info for me as well. Thank you, Leo. So yeah, so we have 2 more questions here and we have time, so let's take it. Edge network server calls. We have noticed that after switching to Edge network extension on mobile application on AEP, the number of server call usage build has been increased significantly. From Adobe, they said it is because lifecycle events on mobile app is not tracked as a server call through the Edge network implementation, hence the additional server call usages. We also noticed this from other companies as they have posted something similar. Have you ever encountered the situation and how did you tackle it? Okay, so again, this is something to do with the implementation, but I don't know whether the question is really correct. From they said that it is because lifecycle events on mobile apps is not tracked as server call to the Edge network implementation. I'm not pretty sure what it means. But if at all you are using an updated version of sorry, you have anything?
Yes. So because for this one, I know Well, a little bit in the different direction. First, I know that if we change to use the Edge extension in the mobile app tracking, it really doesn't include the app lifecycle tracking automatically, like the original Adobe Analytics extension. You have to do some sort of configuration in the corresponding launch container to do some type of event forwarding so that it will track those app life cycle, like the app launch, install, crash, and etc. But from the reading, it will seem to me that, okay, if the Edge extension not sending those life cycle call, shouldn't it be the hit goes down, the bill should go down. So it should be in another direction, but I think if we want to keep those things back for the life cycle, we need to enable some of the configuration in the in the launch. And then I remember Adobe Experience Lead has a documentation about what is required to do so. And on the other hand, not for the mobile app, but for the website, if we use the web SDK, I also see some comments saying that there are some increase of the server call because the web SDK actually do a bit of some other automatic tracking and then sending data separately. So that increase the hit count to the repository. But I see from some product release announcement, Adobe is trying to combine a couple of those automated tracking into one single server call to reduce these additional hit sending out. So that's it, but that is more on the web SDK instead of on the mobile app, per my understanding.
Same here. So if you think about the earlier implementation of mobile app metrics in Sidecareless, right? That's what I remember. There is a separate interface for mobile app metrics. So when we were using that, the lifecycle metrics were added by default. So you just need to add the SDK. Lifecycle metrics will just trigger, right?
Yeah.
You need not configure anything. But when it comes to Adobe launch implementation, even though lifecycle metrics are there, you need to trigger it, right? You need to have some configurations there where you can ensure that, right, you can limit or you can just play around with that configurations and making sure that you have the background and foreground logic, everything being set properly so that the lifecycle metrics are tracked in app measurement using launch, and we have a separate configuration of SDK itself where you need to implement it. So when you want to migrate or when you have migrated to WebSDK, then we definitely need to take a look into that configuration. So how it is working in line with the WebSDK is something we need to think through. Yes, we have also implemented it for our mobile app, but we have never seen this problem. So we have implemented and we are seeing the numbers, which is fine, which means there is some sort of logic you need to tweak or else something to do from the configuration end. So you have your app developers and you check with assurance, right? You have assurance right now. If at all you are using assurance, see whenever server calls are triggering. Is it triggering whenever you go to foreground to background or background to foreground? Is the minutes between this foreground background, we call it as a session expire or something, right? So see whether all these things are set properly. If all these things are set properly, then using assurance, you can easily understand when it is triggering the lifecycle call, or even if it is not lifecycle call, let's say it is triggering some call which is not even adjoining to the lifecycle, then see why the trigger is happening. And if you can fix those, I guess you can reduce the server calls for sure. So the only option here is see the lifecycle configuration for foreground and background methods, and then use assurance to ensure that or play around with your web SDK and ensure that the server calls are not sent multiple times, just sent one time, or lifecycle metric is not triggered unwanted, right? So some ways you can validate it and try to fix it from the development part. I don't think so it is a big problem from the Adobe side, but should be from the configuration at the SDK level.
Yeah, and I also share a link that is the documentations on experience leak about what you need to do on the Adobe launch, so that when you are using the Edge extension, and then it can capture the app life cycle. So this is something we need to do if switching from the Adobe Analytics extension to the Edge extension for mobile app.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, since because you said something, right? I remember we started with ACP core. I don't know people who started with the implementation. There are two different SDKs. One is ACP core and AEP core. So ACP core was the one of the early release version of AEP Web SDK. And when we started that implementation, we have found a lot of issues in terms of installing it, or even in the data collection point of view. We were unable to do it for some of our Flutters, or some of the native application. So I would say that see what is the recent update from Adobe. Let's say if at all you are using AACP core extension, I would definitely suggest to you to go for AEP core extension to ensure that these are configured properly. Right? That is also one thing you need to validate whenever you are validating your implementation. Yeah, so we are at this question right now, William. So within AA, how do you best address the exclusion of bots by using AA segments? Curious what others are doing. So let me go.
It depends on what type of bot. You go first.
Yeah, right. So see, usually whenever I asked, right, so I was also having or asking all these questions to a few of my experts and champions, right? So one of the simplest ways is to use the user agent of your browser. So using the user agent of your browser, you can easily identify some of the bots. And we already have the global list that has been excluded, right? If at all you know that, in Adobe, we have a bot exclusion by default. If you just enable the IAB bot filtering, international bots, right? All the bots that Adobe identified by itself, right? They have the list, they have the lookup, right? Where all these things are already been mapped. When you enable, all these bots are already been filtered. But assume after this particular filtering of bots, you still see that some of the bot agents are coming in using, let's say, some browser user agent, or coming from some IP address or something else, right? So then what you need to do is, right, user agents right now you can easily capture using processing rules, and then IP address also you can do it. So for one of our client, what we have done is they have their internal team who will be validating all their production numbers. And we also seen some of the bot IP addresses, it has not been restricted or not been filtered by the IAB. So what we have done is we have identified all these IP address range, or IP address or IP address range of IP address, or user agent, and all some of the other options, and we have manually excluded this in our workspace as a segment. So that's what we were doing in addition to all the bot filtering that it has. And Adobe also has not even bot filtering, it also had an exclude IP option where you can exclude the range of IP address. So the best option is to have, first one is bot address enabling the IAB, and if at all you have any other thing, you can also add it as your IP exclusion. And it is also very important in bot exclusion rule, it is not just you need to add it manually. What you can do is if you have the list of IP addresses and everything, you can upload it using a bot filter. Because we have done it, I remember. So some options where you can do it at the processing level, and after processing, if at all you still see numbers, and if you want to exclude, then segmentation would be the right option for you to exclude.
Yeah. So I think the ideal case is use the bot exclusion rule in the repository configuration, because by using that bot exclusion rule, those data will not be showing up in the reporting interface. So you don't need to care about the segmentation, etc. But what the Adobe Analytics supporting is they only support user agent, IP address, and IP range, as Anu mentioned about the bot exclusion. That is the most common way for us to exclude bot. And then by default, you can have a single tag to enable the IAB block rule, and then you can add in whatever custom configuration on those bot you are aware of? Because I know that some company may have some continuous regular pen test type of bot visits to their own website that can generate quite a lot of different bot traffic that could distort the report. And if we do the configuration directly in the bot rule, then the user do not need to care about this bot segment. They can just use the report as is, bot free. But if we use a segment, then we need to capture those user agent IP address into a EWA, because normally Adobe Analytics, the default tracking, they do not populate, or the report, they do not populate the user agent and IP address as a dimension for us to use in the Adobe Analytics UI to create any segment. We need to do some duplication of those information. That is a little bit troublesome somehow, but it can be quite handy if we are aware on any new bot that we do not aware. Because sometimes when the IT decided to change the tools they use to do some regular pen tests and then not informing us, then we may start seeing the bot traffic, and then we can go back to update the bot exclusion rule, but it will only kick in since we update, and then we will have a period of report with some bot traffic. Then by that time, then we can use the segment to exclude. But for that case, then we need to remember to set up the some sort of extra EWA to capture user agent and IP address. Could be sensitive because some market or some people, they may not willing, they don't want to capture the IP address. And then once we capture those things, and then we can do the segment. And then also again, if it is some known and internal bot, it is also better to have some conversations with the IT team that they are the administrator behind those internal bot for the pen test or those exercise. If possible, they can also put in some special string or character into the user agent to make it easier for us to understand, okay, they are the bot that we are internally triggering those bot traffic. Yeah, and then we can also have the bot report in here, as I know trying to do, is these are based on the bot exclusion configuration we have in the Adobe Analytics admin console. So they have a clean site, maybe without any bot traffic. I know, sorry, you are mute as well.
Sorry. Now, what I was saying is, if at all we were capturing something from the bot, right? Yeah, I can see some bot traffic here,
Yeah,
right?
so
So
here.
I can see the numbers, yeah. But if I do an exclusion in XP, then the numbers won't be captured at all. I don't see any numbers. Might be, do I need to change the data? Yeah.
So for this one, yes, there are some, yeah.
So these are an IAB bot filters, right? Bot traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and our
and
understanding
these
is
numbers
these
are not showing up.
Sorry?
So I just want to say that these numbers are not showing up in other metrics. So they are excluded already by Adobe from those page view, wizard, and etc. So those other metrics are all clean.
Understood. Yeah. Yes, that is an option we have right now. So yes, we are good. So we have almost answered all the questions. Do you have any other questions which is coming in from our chat? We have just 5 more minutes.
Attending summit. If you are attending summit, what sessions are you most looking forward to? So are you going to join? Anu?
I'll be there. I'll be there for sure.
Okay.
So I already booked a
That'd be
few
great.
sessions. Definitely our Rockstar session for sure, and the Experience Maker Awards. I don't know whether everybody are invited, but I was trying to go there as well because one of our so we have selected as in one of Experience Maker category, right? So we will be there. So that is also, we are excited towards the results. So we are finalists already, and we will be going there. So that is there, and definitely we don't want to miss the top Rockstar session. And I have also booked a multiple session related to CJA. So what are your favorites there, Leo? Are you coming?
Unfortunately, I'm not going. So, and
Okay.
I am in the on the Asia side, so I also quite difficult to attend the live session. So only looking for those recording, but definitely we are on the analytics champions. Of course, all things about analytics that I will look forward to see if there is any new things are coming up. That not only CJA, we know Adobe put quite a bit of effort on the CJA, but they are also doing quite something on the Adobe Analytics as well. And I also want to see what things that are coming into the Adobe Analytics itself instead of the CJA. And a lot of us should be not only simple just using the Adobe Analytics. So we may also I also want to learn more about the target, the AEP platform as a whole, then for the CDP and the AJO altogether, because it is how we build the ecosystem to connect all the things together, have the data, have the activation.
Yeah. Yes, RTCDP is the most exciting one for me because for the recent years, I'm working mostly with RTCDP, and they have also released a lot of new ones, a lot of cool demos, and everything are out there. So I'm really excited for this particular summit. And yeah, see, one of the bigger feature I would love to see in Adobe Analytics is the processing rules, interface change, and enhancement. I don't know whether there will be announcement there. I'm hoping for it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So
no more.
I guess we are good. So we just have 2 more minutes. If everything is good, I guess we can wrap up the call then. I saw one chat. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you,
Okay.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Leo. Thanks for your time.
Bye.
Great insights. I took a
Thank
lot of
you.
insights from you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Bye.